Welcome into Basketball by Association. My name is Arky. That is Joel. He is the association part of this podcast. Joel, what's up, brother?
I don't even know what that means, but it sounds provocative, so I guess we'll go with it.
Here's my thing. I like to say things and then let other people interpret them. That's what I like to do.
You're like the Bob Dylan of your generation. Just words are going to come out and they'll sound really deep and profound.
Yeah, I'm the Bob Dylan of better hair though. That's what I got. Yeah. We got probably a pretty good episode for you. Who knows? It could suck. We'll find out in a minute. But Joel,
way to sell the people.
It's the new episode. Yeah, go ahead and fast forward about 10 minutes. Joel, it's the first show of the week, which means this bad boy's numbered.
It is episode 67, and although that is an oddball number, and although only 2 players in NBA history have ever worn that number, and although one of those 2 players is Mo Becker from the Detroit Falcons, yes, that's right, the Detroit Falcons get a shout out for the second week in a row in 1947. I get the feeling the Detroit Falcons, and I haven't looked this up, weren't around for any longer than 1947, but the other guy who has worn this number has worn it loud and proud for the last 4 seasons. And Arky Shea, if you don't remember who number 67 is, you might have to turn in your fan card. That should be a huge, huge, huge New York-sized clue for you, Arky Shea.
Dude.
And said guy, who you should really, really know, who has worn 67, also I have a connection to because he also wore 67 with the Minnesota Timberwolves for the 2 years prior to New York. So you better get this one.
Oh, man. Who?
You're brain farting right now, I can tell.
I am. Hit me.
Here's the other clue. Although being that it's a Tibbs guy, it's not really a clue. He did not wear 67 when he was in Chicago.
Oh, hey, is that no, hold on. I got this. He was wearing 67 this year, right?
Yeah. Remember when he warned you people that this episode was going to suck for 10 minutes?
Yeah, 10 minutes.
It's like he saw into the future.
I'm missing it. No, don't tell me. Do not tell me. Don't tell me. I know this. I haven't thought about the Knicks in like 3 weeks. Taj Gibson, right?
It's Taj.
Oh God,
Taj Gibson has worn 67 for the last 4 seasons. And I know there's a story behind it. I remember seeing it on a broadcast. It has something to do with his hometown. I don't know if it was a zip code or a area code reference. It was something. I can't remember the story behind it, so I don't want to even try to get back into it. But he did choose that very purposely. It had something to do with back home. It was not the number that he wore in college or when he was with the Chicago Bulls.
Yeah, it's I think it's hometown. I don't think I should know this one. I'm sorry. This is the first 10 minutes episode. Like I said, it's a fort name. It's a fort name. Fort Greene.
Okay.
Fort Greene. That is the Fort Greene projects in Brooklyn. Is Brooklyn, right? I don't know the boroughs that well. Whatever. So that's fine. Anyway, it's no homage to his projects days where he grew up. So,
okay.
I'm pretty sure. You know what?
Very cool. So this is the Taj Gibson episode, and Taj is one of those guys that, I mean, I think you kind of like him whether he's on your team or not on your team. He's getting a little long in the tooth at this point, but he was always one of those guys where it's like, yeah, the only reason he's really in the league is because he works his tail off, and boy, does he ever. So.
Yeah, I'm sending my apologies to Taj right now for all of that. Boy, I stumbled through so much of that.
I know you almost lost your fan card.
You know, I feel like I would be the best and worst like trivia game show contestant ever, because as most people sort of think or use lifelines or whatever, like you would just hear me going, hold on, no, I know this. Give me Give me a
Get
second.
this man a towel because there's some flop sweat going on here.
I have to talk myself into remembering things. Like I had to talk Taj Gibson into my brain. So that one hurts, Joel. You're on your own for the rest of this episode. Oh my god.
Are you somebody who kind of relies on your better half to remember like all the important family dates and important calendar things, or is that something that you naturally remember? I know the stereotype is that most guys don't remember and their better half usually does, but
I have all of my dates on a calendar for a reason. Like all everyone in the family's birthday, the anniversary stuff, they're written on a calendar. I make it a big deal. I make it as a big present to my wife every Christmas, next year's calendar with photos of the family. But that way also, it's in the kitchen every day. I'm having no excuse to forget it. So,
take notes, gentlemen, if you're listening. That's actually a pretty smart idea to save your butt more often than not. So
yeah, it's like my family's birthdays, her birthday, even though I technically know it. I'm pretty sure at some point I'm going to forget it. And
I theoretically know it.
Like I should know it. I should know that the NBA Finals is starting to heat up. Mm-hmm. By the way, a nice 20-point
segue.
20-point victory for the Milwaukee Buckaroos. And Joel, it was another great performance from Giannis. Just absolutely brilliant play by him. Phoenix decided they wanted to try to put him on the line a lot. It was different at home. He had a great night from the free throw line, comparatively speaking, especially. And Milwaukee rolls in game 3. Joel, just 30,000-foot view and thoughts on what you saw from game 3 now that Milwaukee has definitely fought their way back into the series.
Well, before I give the Bucks a ton of credit, we did say with the Suns after game 2, the way they were rolling, that probably one of the only things that was going to derail them was going to be a bad shooting night from Devin Booker and or Chris Paul. And Booker certainly had a bad shooting night, which is rare for him. I mean, you'll get a bad half out of Devin Booker every once in a while, but it's rarely an entire game. And Chris Paul, while efficient, was 1 of 4 from the three-point line and had Drew Holiday really draped on him all night. So even though Chris Paul made a lot of good plays, he's still minus 13 while he was out there, and he clearly had to work a lot harder to get to his spots than he did previously. So I'm not saying that, the Suns lost this game and the Bucks didn't win, because the Bucks played phenomenal defense. They contributed a lot to some of those missed shots from Suns players, especially Devin Booker and Cam Payne, who was 3 of 10, by the way. However, missed shots like that or tough shots like that are oftentimes one that Booker has made. And instead he logs 29 minutes, has a very forgettable game at 10 points. And if you're Milwaukee, you go, all right, our game plan was sound, our effort was good, but we cannot bank on the fact that Booker is going to have 2 bad games in a row, because that's probably unlikely at this point. And it did contribute a lot to that run in the second quarter where the Bucks absolutely came storming into halftime and were able to blow the thing open. And then, to their credit, because we've seen them do this before, where they jump out to a very nice first half lead and then come out of halftime flat. They let the other team back in. To their credit, they absolutely did not do that in the third quarter. In fact, they piled onto the lead a little bit more before the foot came off the gas pedal just a bit in that fourth quarter. So Milwaukee was more active. Again, they were bailed out by some shots that missed, but they controlled the glass on both ends, which is something that they have very inconsistently done. Giannis was not only getting his points, we've seen him do that in this series already, but he was so active on both ends. He was so aggressive, and so often that sounds like a cliche. It's a Mark Jacksonism that really doesn't mean a whole lot, but yet there are times that it does. And Giannis was attacking with a purpose, not blindly. He was attacking quickly. He was making decisive moves. He was getting assists out of that too. It wasn't stand and wait. And you were absolutely right, Arky, when he got put on the line, having a nice home crowd behind him. 13 of 17 is a huge night at the free throw line for Giannis, and you hope it jumpstarts his confidence a little bit through the rest of the series. And I'm going to give credit to something that Mark Jackson and Jeff Van Gundy had said in game 1, that your team is going to go as your superstar goes, especially these Bucks. And when Giannis was assertive and he was aggressive, you saw it filter down. You saw it diffuse among everybody else on that Milwaukee roster. They were flying all over the place. And that good defense, along with some missed Suns shots, turned into a bunch of fast break opportunities that the Bucks just frankly did not have in either game back in Phoenix, and that turned into easy offense.
Yeah, I first want to say that I'm very thankful that everything slowed down for the fourth quarter. I got the under 221.5 on that just by the skin of my teeth.
Wow, yeah.
I had the under in the first two games, and I should have had the under in the first two games. In that third quarter, just on the total alone, really ticked me off because they scored way too many points, both teams did, in that third quarter to where I had to sweat the fourth. But outside of all of that, money making aside, from the game itself, I think what we sort of missed in the first two games, especially, we got when they were able to go back home, which was a really nice night from Middleton and Holiday.
Mm-hmm.
Like, both of those guys had not had a really good night together in these finals yet until game 3. And you add that on top of Giannis, who was trying to put this team right on his shoulders, and has been doing so ever since the Brooklyn series, especially, that he's been trying to get these guys all on the same page, all pulling the rope the same way, all the cliches that should be mentioned out there. That as much as he was trying to strong arm the team out there, he needed help from Holiday and from Middleton, and they both were excellent in game 3. And I think a huge reason why they were able to be so good in that second quarter was not only their defensive effort, but their offensive efficiency, especially from those two guys too. That really keyed a huge run by Milwaukee, and they played great in the second half too. And that way, the fourth quarter, as you alluded to, they were able to sort of take the foot off because you had a giant lead.
Drew Holiday has been so hot and cold throughout these playoffs. I mean, literal feast and famine, and the Bucks are understandably so much better when he is a threat out there and he's confident because shots are getting knocked down. To his credit, he hasn't stopped shooting even on the bad nights, but obviously that doesn't help their cause. It's just a credit to him. But it spreads the floor that much more. It takes a little bit of the defensive key off of Giannis. And Middleton, I'm going to point out, he's 6 of 14 in game 3, 3 of 7 from the 3-point line, 18 points. On paper, not really all that efficient. It's not a huge game, but what Chris Middleton did is he hit very key and timely shots, especially when that run was going on. When they started to bust things open in the second quarter, it was Middleton hitting some really big ones, and Bobby Portis the same way. Bobby Portis took 11 shots in 18 minutes. He is a gunner off the bench. That's his role. But he was 4 of 11 points. But you look at Portis, he was plus 19. Middleton, a little less impressive at plus 8. But both of those guys just seem to be on the spot everywhere, both offensively and defensively, when that run counted or when that run happened and when the Bucks really needed it. So it was that timely appearance beyond even what the box score says. And it really jump-started Milwaukee into a place where you go, oh yeah, this is how good the Bucks can be when they're confident. This is why they're in the NBA Finals. And they've been a Jekyll and Hyde type of team, right? I mean, there's been times where they look like they have no confidence and they're hitting their head against a brick wall, and everybody's saying that Budenholzer is an idiot and that Giannis isn't an MVP, and that their big three is just a paper tiger and all that stuff. And all of it is true in those moments. And then they do enough, right? They do enough to win a big game like this, or to win a game 7 against Brooklyn, to take care of business against Atlanta. And there is something about that where you don't want to bank on bad habits forever, but Milwaukee doesn't always have to win a series pretty the whole way. And that's why they're here. That's why they've gotten this far. They are very, very talented. And when they are playing confidently, when they let their defense create into offense, they are a really scary team because of their size and their strength.
Yeah, and that's what I was alluding to before, by the way, with Holiday and Middleton Woods there in that second quarter. That was the efficiency that we're speaking of, where they were there when that giant run happened.
Yeah.
And they weren't detriments to the team the rest of the game. It's just they needed during that run. They were just hot. The whole team was hot during that run, and they weren't a negative for them.
Yeah, and the ball was popping, right? I mean, the ball was moving all around the same way that it does for Phoenix, and the same way that during those bad Bucks games, every single person, whether you're a Bucks fan or not, maybe the sole exception are Suns fans, but everybody else in the world is going, move the ball. Come
Right?
on, like stop standing around.
Phoenix, there was this big thing going around the internet for after game 2 where everyone wanted to point to it. There was a possession where there was 10 passes in a possession, 9 or 10 passes or something in a possession. And it's almost like Milwaukee saw that and said, yeah, we know how to pass too. And they were, like you said, they were more, they delegated the ball more. They tossed the thing around a little bit more and took better shots than what they're used to.
Right, and with purpose. It wasn't, the ball starts hot potatoing late in the shot clock because Giannis or Holiday stood around and did nothing with it for 10 seconds,
Right. And so here's it's the thing that's been so maddeningly frustrating about this Bucks team is that we've seen this Bucks team a lot. Like we've seen them the vast majority of the season and in big chunks in the playoffs when they're sweeping Miami and they're getting past Olympic Brooklyn and they're now winning a game in the final. We've seen this one. What's frustrating though is that we can't count on that team. Like the only thing we've been able to count on so far is Giannis. That's the only dude that we know every single time out. I think he was asked in the post-game press conference if he thought he was going to be able to break Jordan's record of 4 straight games in the finals with 40 points or something like that, and that's in the playoffs with 40 straight points. And he was like, I'm not Michael Jordan. But he might as well be as far as the production he's putting out there, right? As far as just like the pure production and pure him being the guy that is on when the lights are on this entire series so far. I mean, he's been their guy. We just don't see it from everybody else. And we know it's there. We know it's there. And I want to ask you, are we just going to have to, it's kind of hard to say this now with them having to win 3 games to get to the finals. Are we just going to have to be comfortable with this team winning in just the most maddeningly, frustratingly bizarre times to show up, but when they do, they look great kind of way?
That's kind of been their MO. And we'll use another cliche that they are who we thought they were,
Yeah, I mean, this team. I mean, it's right down the gauntlet of what we've seen them to be. It's just
it would certainly make gambling easier, right? If they were a little more consistent and predictable. But
you would think a team that's in the NBA Finals would have more of a through line through it of not the hot and cold play that we've sort of seen through them. But that's sort of not been who Milwaukee is, and they are. There was a big deal made that Giannis was, joking and before pregame and in practice the day before the game and stuff. They was trying to keep things light, because they're coming back home and, the series starts when you lose at home kind of thing. It's just they're comfortable with being who they are. Right? Like they're not going to get outside of their comfort zone of who they are.
Yeah, I don't know if they're comfortable with it. I just think it is what it is. I mean, look,
Well, why would they keep doing it, right? Like they haven't really deviated from who they are this entire postseason, and they've just been able to get to Game 4 of the finals with a chance to split it. So, I don't think that they've ever sort of been uncomfortable yet. It's just they're going to play the way they play. You're not going to force them into doing anything very different from who they are. You're not going to change their identity. So they just hope it's enough for 4 out of the 7.
I mean, look, to cross sports here.
Do it. Tennis.
A Trent Dilfer-led team won a Super Bowl, and a Rich Gannon-led team went to a Super Bowl. You can win ugly and still be very, very good. And the Bucks have had some ugly wins where they did enough. They've also had some really beautiful wins where everything was clicking. But you're right, it hasn't come consistently. And at the same time, I mean, let's be real. This has been a year of parity. The teams that the Bucks had to get through were really, really good. This Suns team is really, really good as well. So there is certainly a lot of leeway to have a bad game against a good team where what they were doing was clicking so much too. What's been maddening about some of these Bucks losses, as we've talked about many times, is it's not just, oh, they missed some shots, oh, the other team was really clicking. It's the like mental and execution aspect of it where you go, why is Giannis taking 3 dribbles to nowhere? And then, shoveling the ball off to PJ Tucker late in the shot clock so that he can tee up a field goal that misses wide right almost every time. Like, why?
But they keep doing it. That's
right.
The thing where I talk about how like this is just who they've sort of grown to be. And if you if you get efficient shooting and you get the open looks, you may tweak a couple things when you're like super hot, like that run in the second quarter where you see things that, like everything's just working right. Like you're passing the ball more and more, and no shots are followed. Like it seemed like nothing was going to go wrong for you, and you just have those moments. But like it's not as if like this is the team that still is going to shoot a bunch of threes. That's still going to have Giannis do a lot of sort of hold on to the ball, and you're going to see a lot of the same thing in Game 4. It's just, will they be able to execute better than what Phoenix is going to be able to? And that's just a night by night scenario.
Giannis can certainly initiate plays. There's no problem with that, but he's got to make decisive moves as he did in Game 3. He needs guys cutting backdoor or flashing and not just standing and waiting to watch to see what he does, kind of off rhythm, which was, again, really happening in Game 1 and 2. And even though Giannis had nice stat lines, you pointed it out, the stat lines were nice from Game 1 and 2, but I didn't actually think Giannis was that effective at what he did. Because, yeah, he scored just because he's big, and the Suns really do not have a body answer for him beyond DeAndre Ayton. And so Giannis has an inherent advantage against these Suns that he did not have against the Hawks, and that he should have had against the Nets, but just didn't, because he allowed himself to be guarded by Kevin Durant and Blake Griffin especially. So he's had those nice games, but you still need that movement, and the ball needs to find activity. It needs to find energy. And so Giannis can swing the ball and still get it back later in the possession, right? He doesn't have to hold it and then ditch it and never see it again. Or you can initiate and try to get him in good spots. And I really do think that what jump-started Milwaukee's offense, which has been so stagnant at times, was the fast breaks. It was just a few more fast breaks generated by Suns misses and by good defense on the Milwaukee side that got them into a rhythm. It got them some of those proverbial easy baskets. It got shooters rhythm look threes where you make one and it feels real good, and then you're ready to come down and shoot it again. So yeah, the game plan, I think, is about defensive energy, and then it's about energy with the ball on offense. And it's not always that Milwaukee has been lackadaisical, but they've been lacking confidence. And so that confidence to attack and then allowing yourself to like feed off of that is going to be really important. And we can certainly talk Suns adjustments next, because they got some now.
So you can sort of see it as the reason maybe Giannis is sort of holding on to the ball, or maybe the possessions are a little slow and more methodical, is that they are not quite as I guess you use your word, confident in what may actually transpire in that play,
or assertive, right?
To just go run it, to just go run the play and go attack and see what happens, because you believe that your guys are going to beat their guys.
And chances are there's no real play; it's a set that's going on. But at the same time, like, a set is not, hey, we're going to half-heartedly after 8 seconds go set a high pick and roll for Giannis. Or we're just going to let him dribble into the mid post, and then he kind of looks like he doesn't know what he wants to do from there. And again, Crowder and Bridges are strong. Ayton's got the length on him, but Ayton's only got so many fouls to give. And then, especially with Dario Saric not being available, you get into the Suns bench and you go, all right, Cam Johnson, undersized. Torrey Craig, undersized. Abdel Nader, undersized. Frank Kaminsky, too slow. There's no answer to Giannis. And so he doesn't have to score. He doesn't have to beat his head against that brick wall, but he does have to collapse the defense. He's got to get one other defender coming over to help, and then he's got to be assertive that either he can split the double, or if the help never comes, then he's going into shark mode and he's going to feast at the basket. Or if that help defender is coming, find the open guy and pray that the Bucks are on that night and can actually hit their threes. Because remember, this was one of the top 3-point shooting teams in the league all year.
Yeah. And
they have not been quite that way during the playoffs, to put it nicely.
No. I mean, that's a completely fair thing to say. Well, let's go ahead and get to it. The Suns do now have to adjust to something, because it wasn't just Giannis putting up another 40-point night. That's par for the course for him at this point. Going into Game 4, and they have extra time to do it. Again, the game's not till Wednesday night. Thanks, NBA, for making us wait so long, but I guess I get it. The home run derby's Monday for baseball. The All-Star game's Tuesday. I would watch the NBA Finals over the All-Star game, just to be honest. Everyone wants to go unopposed. Regardless, they have a little more extra time. Does Phoenix and Monty Williams to sort of make some adjustments for Game 4 in Milwaukee? So, Joel, if you were Monty Williams and getting paid the big old bucks, no pun intended, what are you doing?
DeAndre Ayton's got to be able to stay on the floor for more than 24 minutes of the game. Again, that's easier said than done because of all the things we just talked about, but Ayton has been so effective when he has played. He picked up 5 fouls in that one, and eventually they brought him off the floor, but 18 points, 9 boards in 24 minutes. He's got to be able to stay there and continue to be that threat inside, that pick and roll partner with Chris Paul. But really the game plan has to come down to, how do we get Devin Booker easy looks again? The Bucks did a great job of trapping, switching, fighting through screens better. And Booker, again, just had a night where there were some really good looks out of that he just did not make. So can you get Booker going downhill towards the basket? Can you get some defensive stops that allows you to get out and run, but make sure that Booker knows, hey, buddy, we need you to sprint because we're going to try to get you a couple easy layups here to start this game. And just to get you feeling it in a rhythm, get some close looks, because as soon as he starts flame throwing again, the floor opens up immensely. And no matter how good the Bucks defense is, when that floor gets spread, now you got more room for Chris Paul to do his thing, and Ayton's going to get easy baskets, and you can get a lob to Mikal Bridges every once in a while, and you're probably not going to get 18 points out of Jay Crowder like you did in Game 3, but you don't necessarily need that if, other guys, Cam Johnson had 14 points, campaign really didn't do much. But a lot of their looks that they got, they just felt like, hey, it went in, but they really had to work hard on it. So it's kind of the same thing that we've said with Milwaukee. Your defensive intensity has to jump up now. You got to do a much better job of controlling the boards, which is way easier said than done because you are the undersized team against a Milwaukee team that is very conventionally big. But at the same time, if you can change, and the Suns have preached this all year, to win on the margins. If you can win just a few more of those margins and get out and run for those easier looks, your speed suddenly kills and your shooting can kill. And spreading the floor, especially if Booker's on, all of a sudden Milwaukee, you can't really defensive scheme for what the Suns have, but you got to find something easy. And yes, you're on the road in Milwaukee. You don't have the crowd behind you. You don't have Giannis missing free throws and in his own head. That's going to be really tough. And don't be surprised, even if they make those adjustments when we go 2-2 here.
Speaking of the crowd real quick, how nice was Milwaukee for Game 3 too? Like, both of these teams' fans are like super into this finals, which is, again, I hate to just blow them up for no reason other than being loud, but like, I don't know, maybe it's just me missing it for the last year, but like, Milwaukee's been on point, man.
So Milwaukee doesn't have an excuse for all the years that they weren't on point, because Green Bay, that's a rockin' home field advantage in the NFL, right? That has been forever. And the Brewers always have people show up, and it's a loud field, even when the Brewers have been really bad. And Badgers games are really good. And the Bucks have never gotten the respect that the other teams in Wisconsin have gotten. I was talking to my buddy, again, who's a huge Bucks fan about this, and we were both saying, this is great that the Bucks are back in the finals, that they're playing well. People are showing up. They're having a great time. They're really cheering, and we kind of hope that it puts the Bucks on the same footing of respect as the other teams in Wisconsin, because up until this point, they never had it, and which is really weird because they're like, well, they've got an NBA championship, right? They won a championship very early in their history. You would think that would have counted for something. And whether it was, racial apathy because the NBA was a black sport and people just didn't gravitate towards it as much in Wisconsin, which is kind of an unsaid thing, that was maybe part of it. Or that the fact that the Bucks for a long time also just weren't all that good, right? I mean, they had some good teams in the 80s for sure, but it wasn't that type of home crowd advantage. And they had some good players in the 90s and 2000s, but were always just kind of a middling team and not something that really got you excited. And you really hope that this kind of changes that trajectory because, yeah, they will show up for their teams in Wisconsin when they feel for them. And the record in those other sports, like those are good home advantages. And there's no reason that the Bucks shouldn't be.
Can I ask you this question real quick, and then we can move on to other things, including another couple of points I have about this game? I think what you said was very, very thought-provoking. When you talk about if this fan base, this region sort of feels like they want to show up for you. Do you think if this Bucks team was in the finals, but there was no Giannis, and by the way, Giannis never existed. Let's just not say he's hurt or something. Let's just say there's just another guy who hasn't been a two-time MVP that's sort of been, not putting 40 points on the board, but just being like a 20 and 12 kind of guy, but has gotten you to the finals.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think this team is embraced and screamed for like they were, I guess, last night?
I don't know if they would to that extent, because you think about those.
I think you're right. I think you're right. I think Giannis choosing them and saying, I want to stay with you is a huge reason why they love that guy. That guy want to be able to cheer for him.
And it's one of the reasons why, not so secretly, I've been marginally cheering for the Bucks. I've said it before, like if the Suns win, I'm going to be super happy. They've been a fun team. They've played the right way. I want Monty Williams to get a ring. Chris Paul, yeah, he probably deserves a ring too in his career. But for me, I've wanted to see the Bucks win because I think that will solidify Giannis staying there long term without any questions about it. But yeah, I mean, you look back to those really good teams in the 80s. It was kind of a collection of guys. They had some all-stars, but there wasn't like a transcendent player among them. Same thing in the 90s. Like, yeah, Vin Baker and Big Dog Glenn Robinson, Sam Cassell, Ray Allen when he was there. Really good players. Allen was probably the closest that came to being a transcendent player, but it wasn't really until you saw like Allen's entire body of work throughout his entire career that you really appreciated that.
Yeah, you didn't really appreciate him for like every single day success and like how much he did on the court.
No. And so I think there is the recognition, whether it's among the old timers or just, Giannis has been this good, that he's clearly the best player they've had there since Kareem began his career in Milwaukee. And there also is the recognition that like, hey, Kareem wanted out. There was bad feelings between Kareem and the city of Milwaukee, the same way that there was between the Celtics and some of their players back in the day. And Oscar Robertson was ending his career when he was in Milwaukee too. So I think there is the recognition that this is a generational talent. He has chosen them. He wants to stay. He comes from humble beginnings, which I think people can identify with.
It's true.
He's got a Greek background, which there's actually a huge Greek population in Milwaukee. I think that plays a little unsaid thing that not a lot of people recognize. And just that idea that, yeah, he's generational. You don't get players like this very often. It's been cool to see him grow up with them. And you don't want to lose them. And more during the Giannis era, people have showed up. The arena sells out. I felt like it gets louder and louder there every year. Like you're building a whole generation of kids and young adults, and maybe some who were kind of apathetic about the Bucks. Like I'll use my uncles, for example. I've got two uncles there who grew up in Milwaukee. They're huge Wisconsin everything fans. And they're kind of the stereotypical Wisconsin fans where it's like, yeah, go Pack Go, and the Brewers, and yeah, the Badgers, we love them. Oh yeah, and the Bucks, they're cool too. Yeah, I'll go to a Bucks game because it's fun. Whatever, you know. And now over the last 7 years or whatever of the Giannis era, like they buy more tickets, they go to those games. When I talk to them, they're talking about the Bucks a lot more. They're legitimately excited. And that is absolutely the Giannis factor above all else. And so you're creating those ties that maybe weren't there. And you hope that long term that becomes a thing where, again, they're on the same footing and people show up because they're really, you know, insular and regional about their teams, but it's a pride thing too. And if they feel that same way, they're going to show up even if the Bucks have a 20-win season and scream their lungs out like they do for the Brewers when they're bad.
I think it's a good point. And I thank you for bringing it up because I think there is a lot of that. Giannis could have just pulled the star card and said, I want to go whenever I can go to somewhere or trade me or something. That's fine. Get what you can for me, but I want to go win a title. Instead, he said, pay me here. Let's win here. Surround me with dudes that we can do it, and we'll go to the wall. And I think there's a reciprocation there of the fond feelings from the fans, and you're more invested in a guy who actively shows that he wants to be there.
Yes, and it's been said many times before, but you win one championship in a small market and you are immortalized there as a star player in a way that you would have to win like 3 championships in a big market, you know, or a couple back to back. You know, you think of the Knicks in the 70s or like the Rockets in the 90s. In some ways, the bar is higher because there's all that pressure, and your team maybe doesn't have the inherent assets to get you the help that you need. But man, if you can pull it off, you just think about like the love that you have and the status that you have in that place forever because of that.
Not only how much money you would make being there now, because, you know, you got all, you get the bird rides and all that stuff. Yes. The money you would save because you never have to buy anything again in that town.
Well, right. You know, and you can be the guy, you know, like a John Elway and I got a lot of NFL references today for some reason. You can, you know, open up a bunch of car dealerships, and just the fact that your name is on it, you'll make a killing. You know, you open up anything with your name on it and you're the guy and people love you. I mean, heck, like the Brewers never won a World Series, but they went in the 80s, and that team is still like immortalized, and a bunch of those players are still beloved in Milwaukee. And I say this with all this insight because a lot of my relatives are from the Milwaukee area on my mom's side, so I grew up around this stuff. And I mean, just even making it to the finals here, if the Bucks don't win this thing, and you hope they get back again, you hope they go multiple times, but even just getting here is a huge, huge deal.
Giannis's chain of Euro shops would be
right.
Huge.
That's huge. A great idea. The Greek step, right?
I do want to bring up one final thing with this game, which is after Game 3, Monty Williams pulled a Mike Budenholzer discussing the fouling situation. Didn't necessarily point it out, but did say the words, I don't want to bring it up, although we had 16 and they had one guy who had 17 free throw attempts.
The old Ricky Bobby, with all due respect. Yeah.
Right. So 2 out of the 3 games, coaches have had an issue with the free throw line disparity. Do you read anything into this other than these 2 guys just doing the old Pat Riley, Phil Jackson sort of tell the refs they need to get it better for the next game through the media?
I think the hugeness of the disparity, especially in Game 2, was really troubling. I look at Game 3, and the difference in fouls is 24 for Phoenix, 18 for Milwaukee. I am far less concerned with that disparity. I understand Monty Williams was kind of getting to the timing of some of those fouls, and nobody's ever happy. And it's fine to respectfully, as he and Budenholzer pretty much did, to say keep an eye on these things. It's not like the refs weren't keeping an eye on it before, but you put that in the back of their minds, and it's an out, a little bit for why we lost, although neither of them were saying that's why they lost those games. But yeah, I mean, I'm not super concerned. I think it is concerning in a series if it's wild one way and then overcorrects back the other way, and you just keep seesawing back and forth between it, because at that point you go, do they really have a control on this game? Are they being reactionary to somebody carping about it? Do we got Tim Donaghy trying to cover some weird spread that we don't know about? Like, that's when the alarm bells go off a little bit. But a 6 foul differential, nah, man. If anything, you're happy that it got back to relatively even if it was not in your favor, because it should, for the most part, be relatively even. But at the same time, like, there are certain games where one team legit is racking up a ton of fouls, and what are you going to do? Call phantom fouls on the other end so that everybody gets a participation trophy? Like, you don't ref that way.
And I'd like to mention just one thing to Monty Williams, if he is listening, and I know he is.
He always does.
You guys were fouling. You guys went after Giannis. You guys were trying to shut down the beast. Okay, I understand. Some of those were fouls. In fact, a decent number of those were fouls. So, some of them were true. And even if you cut the numbers in half, you still lost the game. It's not the reason you lost the game. Right. If you it's one thing to sort of just, I guess, put in the back of everyone's head and say, hey, maybe swallow the whistle when you think there's a foul concern.
And I'll say this.
Oh, it worked out for Budenholzer, I guess, technically in game 3. Like, in game 3, they did go his way. But, you also went home the next game. And
Chris Middleton has been to the free throw line a whopping 2 times the entire series. Now, again, Chris, and both of them happened in game 3. He went on an and one, and then he went on a conventional two attempt trip. And that's a little weird. Like, yeah, Chris Middleton is a jump shooter. A lot of those are fadeaways. He's not usually a guy running to the basket all that much. But you can find those things to complain about, and there's usually some validity to it. But the great equalizer is the other coach on the other bench is doing the same thing and has some, quasi equally valid things that he's upset about too. So in the end, it all just kind of washes out. And I do think, like, it's the NBA Finals. You let guys play. You should let it be a little rougher than normal. The whole playoff should be that way. That's the physicality that we bring, as long as there's nothing dirty or dangerous going on. So 24 fouls, it feels a little high for an NBA Finals game. I will give Monty Williams that if it's disrupting the flow. That would be the only adjustment I would make, is just maybe fewer fouls across the board, but I don't think it was the differential that was the problem.
Yeah. So Monty, keep chugging, keep playing those refs. See if it works. All right. I think for me, I'm good. Are you good? Do you want to make a prediction for what you think Game 4 will be?
Well, I was just going to ask you who you got in Game 4, since you're the betting man. I am going to take Milwaukee in Game 4 at home. I would definitely like to see them win on the road at some point. And Phoenix has been a hostile place, and you talk about a fan base getting behind their team. Suns fans have shown up and showed out, and it's been a really fun atmosphere over there. But I do think being at home, Giannis is just so much more comfortable right now at the free throw line. And I think that translates to him being more aggressive, because he knows when he gets to the free throw line, it's not going to be this whole big thing. So yeah, I'll take Milwaukee. Phoenix will play better. Devin Booker will play better. I got Milwaukee by 6 in Game 4.
That would cover the spread. I just looked it up, see how it changed. It's a 4-point spread for Milwaukee. Phoenix is 3-0 in Game 4s this year, and those are the games they've all been on the road for them. So
all right,
they played well when they needed to play well on the road, but this would also be the best team that they played on the road for that Game 4. And with the best player that was trying to remember when everyone was in the playoffs. Maybe the best player in the playoffs the entire time, but top 2 or 3 that played this entire postseason. Him, Durant, probably, and Chris Paul probably in the top 3 players throughout this postseason, with an occasional appearance from Devin Booker or something here or there. So I do tend to lean Milwaukee now that I've seen that fight from them, and I've seen them be able to come back and to respond, and I've seen Holiday have a good game at home, and I've seen Middleton do the same thing in the same game together.
Right, that's huge.
At home. Does make me kind of want to go the other way because it's not consistent. But badminton as that would be right now, I would take Milwaukee to win. I don't know if I'd like them to win by 4 or more, but I do think Milwaukee evens up the series and we go back to Phoenix.
And home court advantage is meaning something in this series. I think it is going to mean something down the line. I had the Bucks in 7 if Giannis was healthy. I still am nervous about that, right? Milwaukee's got to go into a hostile environment under that theory and win a game 7. And that's where the Jekyll and Hyde nature of them comes in. And you just don't really like it because Phoenix has fed off of their crowd so much and in such fun ways, and all the surgical ways that they attack you. So I'm not real confident about it, but you take it one game at a time. And like I said, if Phoenix is able to pull this off, they will truly have earned and deserved their championship, because they're one of the more disrespected and underappreciated second seeds that I can remember in a long time. We all figured they were kind of a flash in the pan, that they took advantage of a weird year in the West, a weird year in the NBA overall, and that they were too young, they weren't ready. And I mean, they've shown everybody that is not the case, right? I mean, they've been a legit playoff team, a legit finalist.
The one other thing that sticks in the back of my head is Joel Embiid played really well on a bum knee till he didn't, right? Now, he actually had a tear in his ACL, a small tear in his ACL. Giannis doesn't have any apparently structural damage, but I don't know what else that means, like how much of a strain or sprain is on that. He's not played like it, so it just – not that I would use it completely to sort of justify what bet I would make or what I think is going to happen, but it does stick in the back of my head that we've seen a guy in the playoffs hurt his knee and play really well for a few games and then not be able to sort of move the thing consistently after like 4 games or something. So it's just something I'm going to pay attention to, and hell, it might mean nothing.
So. That's an excellent point. It's one of 2 excellent points you've made. And speaking of guys who usually make 2 excellent points once in a game, this is the Taj Gibson episode, and it's in the books.
You guys know we're on YouTube. I just got to shut it down after that. That's a good call. See you, Joel.